She's, I guess, a reporter. She's done broadcasting. She's done all kinds of stuff, right? She is one of the bright minds in covering the game of football. I love it when guys go at her on X as if they know more than her on football, and she just absolutely schools their ass. It always cracks me up. And again, I don't agree with all her takes, but I think she's darn good at what she does. So, Tim, if you'll pull that up for me, that same screen grab we just had, we're going to pop this up, and let's see what Mina Kimes had to say about the Micah Parsons trade. The quote here from SportsCenter, this was tweeted out on SportsCenter, says, I think it will go down as one of the biggest mistakes in NFL history. Let's see what she had to say.
Situation. I have not heard one person say this was a great idea. Way to go, everybody. So how does this move, or how will it, do you think, define Jerry Jones' post-Super Bowl legacy?
I think this will go down as one of the biggest mistakes in NFL history, and I don't think that's true. Players like Micah Parsons don't get traded. The one that we bring up as the most recent comp was Khalil Mack being moved for a few years ago to Chicago for a couple firsts, and it was a little bit different return. Frankly, they should have gotten more for Parsons because he's younger and better, in my opinion. But that trade, after Mack was moved, the Raiders went downhill, and candidly, I expect the same from Dallas. Micah Parsons is the kind of player you wait an entire generation to draft. He is a future Hall of Famer. He is one of the 2 or 3 best defensive players in all of football. The only case in which I think it would be defensible to trade a player like that is if you don't have a quarterback and you're a rebuilding team and you're going to be bad anyways. But that's not what Dallas was. Nothing about this is logical to me. I have yet to hear a coherent football defense for it. And it just seems like it was a case of hurt feelings that spiraled out of control.
That's exactly what it was, Tim, was a case of hurt feelings that spiraled out of control. Hearing Michael Irvin minutes before the trade happened say, he's not going anywhere. Micah Parsons ain't going anywhere, right? He said that over and over and over. And then you find out later that the real issue was Micah did not want to negotiate without his agent, which that's par for the course. Nobody.
I was just going to say that's like standard practice, right?
Bro, it's like it's against the CBA rules for anyone to you literally have to file paperwork stating you're representing yourself if you're someone like Bobby Wagner, so they can get it approved. And that's just to make sure it's kind of a fair practice rule where, hey, look, the owners can't take advantage of the players, right? And Jerry, we know it's Jerry, right? Listen, the dude's 82 years old. I'm 42 and I'm losing my mind. I can only imagine being 82 trying to run a multi-billion-dollar organization.
Absolutely.
But that's really
think about it. Jerry got the Cowboys when he was our age, right? He was like 40 in his early to mid 40s when he hit his oil boom and got his money.
Roughly 88, I think it was 1988. So you do the math there. Yeah. Much closer to our age than he is now. That's for darn sure. So
absolutely. So it's a valid point, right? Jerry's of that old school mindset. And, there's a lot of, that attitude that I respect, right? I'm going to just call it like I see it. And, I'm going to tell you how I feel. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But at the same time, it's 2025 and we have a CBA and we have rules. So, and we see how this trade ended up, right? So couldn't be happier for Packer Nation, right?
Yeah, so Mina Kimes continues to go at it on X. So someone had responded to that, I think it was that video or maybe another tweet, and said they literally can't stop the run. LOL, Mina, do some more research. Talking about the Packers, right?
Yeah.
Look, she hits back with the facts. Packers run defense last year, 7th in DVOA, 5th in success rate, 3rd in yards per carry. You guys know they're actually tied for 2nd. Now, she may have seen a statistic at ESPN and we were looking at something else, but whether it's 2nd or 3rd, I just love that she absolutely.
Let's put Mina back on the screen just for shouting out the facts right there.
I love that she just dunked all over this guy. Like, but this is what you deal with on social media. It really is. Like, I've gotten to the point where I don't even hardly respond. I might throw some stats out in case somebody doesn't know, hey, maybe this will help you from making an ass out of yourself next time. But she just comes back with the statistics, the facts. And people, the problem is they'll hear some media members say something as if it's fact. Like, I'm not going to mention any names, but there's been media members this week talking about, like, you get Micah Parsons. You bitched and moaned about not having an elite edge rusher all year last year, even though you finished with a great defense, 8th in sacks, 2nd in run defense, all the stuff we talked about. And then the second you get Micah Parsons, it's, well, see, told you Gary wasn't good. Like, oh my God. It's exhausting how they'll take a positive situation and immediately try to tear down someone else real quick. You know what I mean? It absolutely blows me. It's like with LaFleur. We get LaFleur. Yeah, well, we'll see how he does. We'll see how Pretty Boy does. He comes out and wins 13 games. Well, it's just Aaron Rodgers, right? Aaron Rodgers leaves. He goes to the playoffs 2 years in a row with Aaron Rodgers' replacement, and now it's on to something else to complain about. So anyway, I digress. I love that Mina presented the facts here, and completely agree with what she's saying. And again, guys, it doesn't mean we're going to be dominant in defense this year. Just because you got Micah Parsons doesn't mean we just got to show up now. Teams have tape on us now. Hafley has already said during training camp, our install was complete, like the second week of training camp. Our install is complete, and we're already on to our adjustment phase, meaning when teams catch on to what we're going to start the season with, we've already got the adjustment in the works, and the guys learning that, which that's what you want to hear as a fan, your defensive and offensive coordinator having a backup plan to the backup plan. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And we saw that in the pressers, right, with Coach LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst talking about, and Micah himself talking about, he's got to kind of get his legs under him, get out here and run, start hitting someone again. He was very excited about putting hands on someone again. He hasn't got out there and ran. And I think, Matt touched on it in terms of deployment with Micah. It's going to take a little bit of time to get him acclimated. But we know he's a monster, right? And, he's going to fit pretty damn good into this Jeff Hafley scheme. And, how cool was it to see Coach Haff and DeMarcus Covington out there on the tarmac, welcoming Micah in to the fold here. We can feel how we want to feel. Facts don't care about that. Facts don't care about your feelings. The facts are the facts, right?
Yeah. Dan Mullen with the super chat. Thank you so much, Dan. He says it may be fair to it being an indictment on LVN. I respectfully disagree. I think it has nothing to do with LVN and his play at all. I think you had an opportunity to get an elite player who's on track to be a Hall of Fame edge rusher. I'll tell you what I think it is, Dan. I think it has nothing to do with LVN. I think they're very happy with LVN. Yep. He finished the year in the second half of the season. He was running with a 15% pressure rate, all while we were keyed in on the run, right? You seen when they told him to pin his ears back, go watch the Tennessee Titans tape. You jump up to a big lead and watch the edge rushers eat. That's where you've seen the upside of LVN. His run defense was really good. Forget what PFF says. You go and watch him on run defense, he's almost the same. It's like he's the same player as Gary when it comes to the run. Stout at the point of attack. Don't get caught rushing way upfield. Hold your gap, set the edge, and just and kind of let the offense come to you. So I don't think it's an indictment on LVN. I'll tell you what I think it is, Tim, and I broke it down in a video earlier today. If you guys didn't see it, I done a quick little salary cap breakdown for 25, 26, and 27. And what I think this is you've now got Parsons in place. So in 2 years, when it's time to move on from Gary as he approaches 30 years old, you're going to have Parsons and hopefully LVN. Now, if LVN comes out this year, he has less than a 10% pressure rate, and he doesn't flash, he doesn't hold up on his end with the run defense, you're in a position to get right out from under that contract, right? You're in a position to move on from him and find the other guy opposite of Micah Parsons moving forward as well. So that's kind of how I see it. I think it's more about that, Tim, on down the road.
For sure. And even before we even had the trade rumors, we talked about the possibility at the beginning of camp of maybe LVN kicking inside. And, now you've got Micah Parsons in the fold with Rashawn out there. In the meantime, maybe we see LVN getting some reps on the interior. You never know. But bottom line, we're a better football team, right? We said that from the beginning. Micah Parsons makes you a better defense. And I don't think it's an indictment on LVN. I would agree to disagree, just like you. But big shout out to Dan Mullen for the super chat.
Yeah.
What would we say? That line the Titans had was ridiculous.
Yeah,
he was mad because I put this picture up.
I guess so. Yeah, and again, this is I got to say it, Dan. I got to say it, man. He says, "Come on, that line that the Titans had was ridiculous. We were not favorites in that game." Going into that game, we were the underdogs, right? And all we heard about is how they had a much more dominant defense than us, right? No one going into that game was going, oh man, the Titans are screwed. Their offensive line sucks, until the Packers got a hold of that ass for, what was it, 8 sacks or something? And again, you get those sacks because the other team is now forced to throw the ball with Will Levis the whole second half of the game. I was there. I was in the stands. I was watching the whole thing unfold. You jump up to a 2-score lead early, and now the pass rush can pin their ears back. Name another game this year where we had a 2-score lead where we could just go after the quarterback. It didn't happen very often, right? Which that's the NFL. So, yeah. And that's the other thing. This argument always pops up. Well, that team was bad. Well, it literally expanded throughout the rest of the year as we got closer to the top 10 in sacks and we finished in 8th in sacks. It went from the Titans were a bad offensive line to, well, these 3 games they played a bad offensive line. Okay, then go run numbers and get everybody who was top 5, top 10, go top 10 in sacks per team and remove the 3 best sack games they had. Okay, and tell me how they rank. Again, man, it's just I don't understand the people who that they claim they're fans and they want to try to find the negative weave in every positive that happens. There's going to be enough negative happen throughout the year that you're going to have to talk about. But
and you're not going to have to look for it. It's just going to jump right out there at you, right?
It cracks me up, man. So, there you go, Jen. Right, that's a great question. What other teams sack them 8 times if they're so bad?
Amen. Great point.
Are we allowed to talk about that, or is that something? No, you can't mention that. That's just crazy. So, anyway, that's it. Let's one other thing, and shout out to Aaron Alice. It's at, I don't even know how to say this. At HEROOINE. Heroin, is that how you say it?
Heroin, I think. Heroin, something like that.
So as they're rounding down the top 100 players of 2025, they had Micah Parsons as a Cowboy at number 36. And she came in here and just swooped in and said, fix that 3rd graphic for you. So obviously, Micah Parsons coming in as the 36th best player on the top 100. You see Josh Jacobs at 33. Obviously, Xavier McKinney was on this list. The hated and overrated Rashawn Gary was voted number 80 by his peers. So now you literally just slam dunk the top 40 player right into your lineup for 2 firsts and Kenny Clark, which Kenny Clark was not obviously on the top 100 list. So, yeah. What do you think about that?
A year or 2 in, this Green Bay defense, I bet you Micah's up in that top 25 category when they go for the top 100 rankings of next season. I fully anticipate, despite the fact that, he hasn't been out there running around and, getting reps very much, but he's got a clean slate, fresh start here. If anyone's going to, grasp the concepts and, his responsibility, his role in this defense as they kind of ease him in, it's going to be Micah Parsons. And I think very quickly he's going to move up that list of, top players in the league for sure.
Yeah. Ben Holden says Parsons should be top 10. I can see the argument for it, Ben. I can. But last year, he played 13 games. He's a little banged up. He still played almost 700 snaps. We talked about that. It's a good comp to him and Gary in terms of snap count. I can understand if you think he should be top 10. I kind of feel like, based off of the injuries he tried to fight through last year and the numbers being down a touch in that regard, I can see him being in this, between 30 and 40. I don't really have a problem with it, but I can also understand, man, you go watch his career highlights. There's sometimes you probably think that dude's top 3.
Sure.
So completely understand where you're coming from with that. Cheesehead Murph says LVM will be good like Bane in his 3rd year. That's the other thing people don't like to talk about, Murph. I'm glad you brought that up. You go look at Trey Hendrickson, the 30-year-old that a bunch of people were screaming trade for him because he led the league in sacks last year. Obviously, that's not down Goody's pike. He's not going to trade for a 30-year-old and then give him a 3 or 4 year contract extension. Micah Parsons was right in the wheelhouse, right in the sweet spot when it comes to age and production. But Trey Hendrickson for the Bengals, he didn't break out until his 3rd year. So, as a matter of fact, someone did a great job. I want to say it might have been Jacob Morley on X way back when everybody started talking about Trey Hendrickson. But he broke it down, and LVN, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about. LVN had better production and better grades than Trey Hendrickson up to this point, if you compared their first 2 years in the league. So imagine if they would have thrown Trey Hendrickson to the wayside and not allowed him to blossom there after year 3 into year 4. So that type of stuff matters, man. It still doesn't mean LVN is going to be a great player. It's just you make an investment like that. You have him playing behind multiple edge rushers, just like we did with Bane Gary, as Murph said. People forget that. Rashawn Gary was a first-round pick, a high first-round pick, right? And he was obviously chose to sit behind Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith and kind of work his way in. And I remember everybody talking about him being a bust. I remember that. And then, boom, he breaks out, 19% pressure rate. Flirting with some websites had him over 20% pressure rate. He gets a contract extension, obviously, after he tears the ACL. So I'm excited, though, Tim. I'm with you. It's just nice to get Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary together. It never even crossed my mind, though, as we were trying to figure compensation. I said I would give up a first and a third in a player. But the players I was thinking about was like, maybe it should be a receiver. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's Wicks. Maybe they remember how Wicks spanked that butt down there in Jerry World in the playoffs.
Sure.
But, once you got to kind of looking into it and everything, I'd never even thought about Kenny. And Kenny has been someone who's underperformed the last 3 years. Team leader, great guy. If you guys want to know what kind of leader he is, go look at the social media posts from the guys. Yeah. Everybody has tagged him in a story, like just acknowledging that's that guy. That's my dude right there. And he'll be back to Green Bay to retire as a Packer, I'm sure. So
I would think so. Last of the Mohicans, right? The last Ted Thompson era pick. A leader for the better part of a decade here. Certainly going to be missed in that locker room for sure. And I didn't see that coming either, Clay. I was with you, man. I thought for sure if a deal was going to get done, it might have been a receiver. It might have been more picks, right? It might have been 2 firsts, a third, and something else based on what we were hearing. But again, hats off to Gangster Goody for getting it done. Kenny Clark and 2 firsts for arguably the best edge rusher in the league. You got to love it.
Yeah. Biz 1987 says, people say Micah doesn't show up in the postseason. Any chance that's because of the way he was used by Dallas? I think it has more to do with you're playing better teams in the postseason. Better teams have better coaches. Better coaches have better schemes. And those better schemes will key in on taking away that Tuesday player, what we're talking about, game planning on Tuesdays for a specific player. So here's the thing. Who did he have lining up opposite from him? He had DeMarcus Lawrence for a little bit, but if I remember correctly, they kicked him into a 3-tech, which helps. But he has never had anyone opposite edge at Gary's level, especially Gary at his best. And I don't know if we'll get Gary's best this year. I know we'll get his best, what do we call it here, his best effort. That's one thing you can say about Rashawn Gary. You're never going to get a version of Rashawn Gary where he's not giving it his all. So
if anything, we get the best out of both of them, right? I mean, how are you going to double team 2 guys? Good luck. Double team Micah or double team Rashawn. Good luck. Somebody's going to win, right?
Right.
And I think that's a great testament. Like, one of my knocks was, Micah's just an edge rusher. He's just a pass rusher, one-dimensional. It's like, well, maybe that was deployment in Dallas. Right. If anyone's going to unlock him, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Micah thrown back there at stackbacker on occasion in this.
It's going to happen, Tim. There's no doubt about it. And we talked about his weak spot in his game, right? Yeah. And that's definitely run defense, right? And it doesn't mean he's horrible at run defense. It simply means
just not a strong suit. Yeah,
right. He's an elite pass rusher, right? He's an elite pass rusher, and I would say he's an above average to good, right? I think very good would be strong, but above average to good run defender. So when you put those two things together, the most important part as an edge defender is obviously getting after the quarterback. But here's what's cool. You've got Rashawn Gary opposite of him, who's just a run stuffing monster, right? So now what you can do is pair them up. And whenever you're in a run situation, when a team comes out in 12 or 21 personnel and you think, okay, they're probably going to run heavy here, what you can do is play an over front and have him as the Sam that everybody says, which essentially it's a jam front, 5-man front with him still playing edge defender and him being Micah Parsons. And you can have an extra body over there to help protect in the run game. And then you can let Gary stay isolated and do his thing with run defense on the other side. So Dan Mullen with the super chat. Thank you, Dan, buddy. That's very generous of you. Hey, man, didn't want to be negative. Indictment was too strong of a word, but he was a high pick. And I don't think it's fair to say that he hasn't lived up to the hopes of the front office. Nobody said he hasn't lived up to the hopes. That's the thing, man. Yeah. You never heard me say, or you never heard me say you're not allowed to say man, he hasn't lived up to that 13th overall pick. You've never heard me say, man, LVN, he's that dude, right? Simply saying it takes time for these guys to develop. And I think sometimes what we think is especially when you get outside of the top 10, in some cases outside of the top 5, you get a group of players. You remember us having this conversation this year, Tim, when we did our entire draft board breakdown.
Yeah.
You get, outside of like the top 10, maybe top 11 guys, and they're all clustered together. That was the big talking point by Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, all the former NFL scouts was like, man, this, I want to say it was from like 13 to 28 or something like that. No, it was actually, it might have been in the 20s down through the 50s. It was like, these guys are kind of grouped together. So, every draft is a little different. So, yeah, again,
and every player develops differently, right?
Right.
We talk about that time and time again, right?
Yeah. And with LVN, look at what he's been asked to do, right? Like, when he was drafted, he came from playing a 3 to 4 eye tech at Iowa, which is essentially an interior defensive lineman in our front, whether it's the nickel or the base. He was asked to do that there, right? Be a point of attack guy. And then he comes into the league, and we asked him to switch up to a 34 outside linebacker.
Yeah.
And then Jeff Hafley comes in and says, all right, now you're going to play a 5 to 7 to 9 tech defensive end with your hand in the dirt. So his last 3 years playing football, whether it be college, first year under Joe Barry in the NFL, or second year under Jeff Hafley, he's been asked to do 3 different things every year. And now us fans, me included, are going, hey, wonder how good he would be on the inside, right? We're kind of to that point now. So I just think, that plays a role as well, and that does stunt the growth. We got rid of Jason Rebrovich, right? And you bring in different, defensive line coach. Now DeMarcus Covington's in here. So I don't think it's any surprise that DeMarcus Covington's first year after studying under Bill Belichick for all those years, now we're hearing that LVN's having his best camp. I think that's
and it's a testament to LVN too, right? Being thrown all those different ways, all those different assignments, all those different looks, all those different responsibilities, different roles so early right away in your career, and you're still progressing pretty nicely. I mean, in my opinion, this could be a breakout year for him. And oh my goodness, if LVN breaks out, we got Micah Parsons, firing on all cylinders. We got Bane Gary out there doing what Bane Gary does best, which is, be a leader of men and a menace on the football field. This Jeff Hafley, DeMarcus Covington defensive front is going to be an absolute problem for teams in the league this year.
What's cool is you've got several players auditioning for that edge defender spot opposite Micah Parsons in 2 years. What I mean is when we had to make a decision on Rashawn Gary, if he's still playing at a great level, you keep him around, you extend him for a couple of years, whatever it is, or you move on. But you mentioned LVM. We're going to find out, is he that dude, or is that somebody you just let walk in free agency, right?
Yep.
You've also got Brenton Cox Jr., who had a 13% pressure rate last year, according to NFL Pro and GPS tracking. And you've got Baron Sorrell, who led every rookie edge. Think of all the edge defenders that we had coming out in the draft. I'm going to try to grab this without making too much of a mess here. So of all the edge defenders, this is a draft board. When y'all see me grab this, that's what I'm doing, looking at our draft board.
Love it.
So, out of edge defenders, I'm going to name them off here. You ready? Abdul Carter, James Pierce Jr., Shamar Stewart, Mike Green, Mikael Williams, Donovan Ezeraku, Jalen Walker, Landon Jackson, Nick Scorton, JT Tuamaloa, Ashton Gillette, Jack Sawyer, Jordan Birch, Josiah Stewart, Princely Umanamellon, Jared Ivey, Kyle Kennard, Braden Swinson was one that was big, right?
Yes.
Elijah Roberts. You got all these guys.
All these guys that we had ahead of Baron Sorrell, correct?
We would have loved to have any of those. Well, we end up drafting Baron Sorrell in the 4th round, and guess who led the preseason? Edge
all edge guys.
Yeah, rookie edge defender. All the rookie edges that we just named off, right? Of all of them, Baron Sorrell led everyone in quarterback hits in the preseason, and he only played in 1 game.
I put the team on my back, dude.
So anyway, it's just something to kind of keep in mind there as well. R. Smith 30 with the super chat. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. I see that it's being said in the chat. I want to say it with some emphasis. Move LVN into the interior. We just kind of talked about it, right? He was asked to play interior in college, and then they moved him to 34 outside linebacker, And then we bring him back a little bit closer at, defensive end, which is essentially you playing a lot of wide 9 and 7 techs. So now we got a lot of people that think, hey, kick him back inside. Think of the void that was just left him.
Yeah,
Kenny
inside.
Clark's now gone, right? So I think there's something to be said for that, R.R. Smith. There's opportunity lining up there, right? Especially when you get in your subsets, your nickel sets, and let's say it's a 3rd and 12, and you want to go with the NASCAR package. You put all your pass rushers out there. LVN eating out of even the one tech will be interesting on a pass rush down, especially when you got, you're doing that double A gap mug and forcing isolation blocks, even if you are dropping some of those guys into coverage. So I don't hate the idea, R.R. Smith. I don't. Now,
neither do I. I think that's how you would see it too, right? You'd see Hafley peppering that in on occasion, kind of working him into some of those looks because we have that flexibility now. When you bring a guy like Micah in, yeah, obviously, we can talk about Kenny getting older and, not being the player he once was and all that, but that's a huge void on the interior of your D line. I don't care who you are or what you think. Him not being there and, Nas Stackhouse being a project, all the more reason to kick a guy like LV into the inside on occasion. I totally agree.
And I would not rule out personally. My count was correct. If my count was correct, Rashawn Gary had 24 snaps at defensive tackle last year. So I wouldn't rule that out. If LVN continues to pop and you kick
Bain onto the inside, woo!
Imagine Rashawn Gary next to Devontae White in our nickel 4-2-5.
Mama, there goes that man.
And what does Gary do well? He's a power rusher, right? You never see Gary get blown off the ball. Nope. You might see Gary get washed out every now and again, or you might see him not break loose at the level that people want to see, but you never see him get pushed backwards. So if you kick him inside on pass rush situations, if LVN continues to take that step, you got Micah Parsons and LVN on opposite sides, and you've got Devontae White and Rashawn Gary on the middle. I'm just saying, if I had to pick between LVN and Rashawn Gary in passing situations, I want to specify that, right? Yeah. I think I would probably lean toward Gary playing on the inside because LVN's got much better speed than Gary, and when we've seen him run down Justin Fields, right?
Oh yeah,
like his rookie year,
maintaining that edge and then being able to not break contain and still get after the ball carrier. Absolutely,
yeah. So again, it doesn't mean that Gary on the inside is the right answer, R.R. Smith, or LVN's the right guy on the inside. But what it does mean is you got options. These guys are built in a way that they can handle the interior. Now, if you get to a run-heavy team, you don't want to see those guys inside, or you don't want to see LVN inside, in my opinion. That's when you want to bring Nas Stackhouse in and just put his big, beautiful butt right there in the middle of this defense. You know what I'm saying? People are going to clip that now. Clayton said Nas Stackhouse has a beautiful butt. Yeah, I said it. Thank you for the super chat, R.R. Smith. Appreciate you. One last stat, and we got to move on to the Chalk Talk. We're going to run out of time. I thought this was cool. Benjamin Solak on X said, dude, come on. All right. Now look at this image here. If you can see it, hopefully you can see it. I can't zoom in anymore.
Oh yeah, you can see how far Micah Parsons is ahead of everyone else.
Absolutely. So this stat here is pressure rate on first and second down. All right. So basically he's pointing out these aren't even pass rush downs. This is just first and second down. Since 2021, Micah Parsons leads the way at 15.3% pressure rate. Trey Hendrickson's second, a far second, at 11.8. Then Myles Garrett at 10.8, Nick Bosa at 10.4, Max Crosby at 10.4, Jadeveon Clowney 10.2, and on and on and on. Now, why do I point this out? This can be a positive and a negative here, Tim. It really can. Yeah. And what I mean is, what I glean from this is, yes, he's been dominant at rushing the passer on first and second down, but also those are run downs. How many times did he run himself out of the play? Right. And that's something I think Hafley and Covington will really be able to harness. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean you want that number to go down. That's not what we want. But you don't want that number to stay high if you're giving up explosives in the run on Parsons' side. So I think you just got to find that. It's a boring argument or a boring comment, but you got to find that happy balance, man.
I agree. For sure.
All right, Joseph Baca with the super chat. Oliver's going to get to learn from the best linebacker / defensive end. It's a great point, man. Great point. Colin Oliver, once he's healthy, learning behind Micah, because Colin Oliver's got that build, right? We've talked about he's kind of that hybrid. Now, I think they mostly see him as a defensive end, but he's definitely that hybrid, Tim.
I agree. And, getting to see Colin Oliver up close and personal a couple of times during camp, he's definitely cut from that cloth too. You talk about a young guy that takes direction well, wants to get better, working his way through this hamstring. Hopefully we see him in the mix at some point here in the near future, but long term, I think he's going to prove to be a great pick. And I agree. He's going to be working behind some of the best in the business with some of the best in the business, coordinating and coaching this defense. So nothing but a high ceiling for the future for sure.
Yeah. And Dan Mullen with the super chat, thank you, says, anyone got clips of Parsons playing in the cold? I think that is a real thing as players get older. From what I've heard, defensive players would much rather play in the cold than the heat. They don't get as gassed. And that's the other thing is, like, I know the big conversation is defenders don't want to tackle power backs when it's cold. Well, I promise you this, offensive players don't want to get hit by absolute dogs on defense in the cold either. That goes.
I would agree 100%. I would think delivering the hit in the cold is less detrimental than receiving the hit for sure.
Yeah. And again, thank you for that super chat, Dan and Joseph. But as Chris, the casual in, points out, played college ball at Penn State. So gets cold up there. Definitely gets cold up there.
Played youth football up in Pennsylvania too as a Packer back in his day, right?
There you go. There you go. All right, guys, that's going to do it for hour one. For those of you listening on the pod, we'll see you on the other side for hour two, where we're going to do Micah Parsons Chalk Talk. We're going to show you his 12.5 sacks. We'll try our best to explain it for you guys and gals, and then we'll also talk about some of the run stops as well and show you how he is not a horrible run defender either. But we'll see you on the other side. We appreciate you.
For those of you listening on the pod,
welcome into hour two. Tim, you ready to get into it, man? You going to see if we can get this done at a reasonable time here, right?
So let's go. Rapid fire, right? Rapid fire. Just like Micah off the edge, baby. Rapid fire. Let's go.
Exactly. So full disclaimer, guys, we're going to do a Chalk Talk here, okay? And if this is your first time tuning in to Chalk Talk, welcome. Thank you for making us a part of your evening. This is